You're never going to know who invested in you, supported in you, or carried you through your hardest season unless you stop long enough to reflect. Many leaders never slow down long enough to notice the people and the lessons right in front of them. But that's okay, because today we're going to fix that. Hi, and welcome to the Everyday Diplomat. I'm Michael Forrest, a retired Marine Sergeant Major, former U.S. diplomat, and somebody who spent the better part of 20 years leading high-performing teams through crisis, conflict, and constant change. Across every chapter of my career, I've seen one thing hold true. Leaders who took the time to reflect, they grow stronger, they make clear decisions, and they understand themselves in ways that reactive leaders just can't do. Stick around, because we're going to dive right into that and more coming right up. I'll tell you what, there is a pace to leadership that can pull you into autopilot if you're not careful. The meetings, the deadlines, the constant expectations, the never-ending motion. If you're not intentional about stepping back, leadership becomes a long list of reactions instead of deliberate pathways forward. I learned that pretty early in my career, and I will tell you what, even now with 3 kids in the house, sports schedules, school projects, and the daily noise of real life, finding quiet moments is not easy. Sometimes the only silence I get is the few minutes behind a closed bathroom door, but those very small pockets of stillness are still enough to reset my mind and remind me of what actually matters. Reflection is not about laying on a mountaintop or disappearing for half an hour with calming music, although that sounds wonderful. It's more like discipline. It's the intentional decision to pause just long enough to hear your own thoughts. Leaders who reflect consistently, they understand themselves a lot better. They understand their people better, and they understand the environment that they're operating in. You see, without reflection, you're simply going to rush. You react. You miss the lessons that are hidden inside of the very moment. You miss the opportunities to adjust before that problem grows. You miss the insights that help you grow into the leader that your people really need. With reflection, your entire decision-making process, it changes. You start noticing patterns, you become more aware of your own tendencies, you identify where your emotions are pulling you off track. You notice the habits that serve you and the ones that don't. You start leading from a grounded place instead of the frantic one. And look, this is not just about work. Reflection actually strengthens you as a parent, as a partner, a friend, and as a human being. It keeps you from drifting through life simply on autopilot, and it forces you to reconnect with the values that you actually say matter to you. Now, as we begin unpacking all of this in this topic, I want you to have access to the lessons that build strong leaders week after week. So before we go any further, take a quick second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because next week we're going to be breaking down the single most important leadership lessons that we talked about in 2025. I promise you're not going to want to miss that one. Reflection is that anchor that keeps you steady. It's the filter that gives you clarity to your experiences. And it's the habit that separates leaders who drift from leaders who grow. In the next section, I want to take you to a place in Kyoto where the power of reflection became impossible to miss. Nellie and I just got back from Japan, where I had the incredible honor of being asked to speak at the 250th birthday ball for the United States Marine Corps for VMGR 152, the Sumos. When we visited Kyoto on this trip, we walked through the Senbon Torii at Fushimi Inari. And if you have ever been there, you know how it feels like stepping into a living river of color. There's thousands of these bright orange torii gates that are stretching forward into a winding path that seems absolutely endless. People move through quietly, and the deeper you go, the more the noise of the city begins to fade behind you. Each gate, it carries writing on the back, a name, a prayer, a dedication, something that somebody carved into history long before you ever set foot there. And here's the part that stayed with me the entire time. You can't see the writing when you're walking forward. You only see it when you turn around and look back. Leadership feels a lot like that. When we're moving through life, we focus on that next task, the next challenge, the next finish line, and we often forget to stop long enough to actually recognize the people who helped us get there. the teammates who supported us quietly, the mentors who guided us without asking for any credit, the family who stood behind us during the incredibly long hours in those hard seasons. In the moment, we rarely notice, but when we reflect, the writing becomes crystal clear. That walk through those gates, it reminded me how many people, seen and unseen, placed their own prayers, hopes, and guidance along my path. Not necessarily in dramatic ways and maybe not in loud displays, but in the quiet influences that often shape us more than anything else. And I'll tell you what, it reminded me that leadership isn't about walking in front of others. It's about walking beside them long enough that eventually, when they look back, they see your writing on their gate. For Nellie and me, this moment felt even deeper because we lived in Japan for many years. We were stationed there before, and one of our children, our middleborn, Nikki, he was born there. We were part of the community in ways that go far beyond a simple vacation or a tourist snapshot. So getting to walk these gates was not just a beautiful moment for us. It was a reminder of a life chapter that shaped who we became as adults, as parents, and as leaders. Reflecting on those years, it helped me appreciate how much of my leadership philosophy came from moments that I never recognized at the time. Moments where somebody gave advice that stayed with me. Moments where somebody modeled calm under pressure. Moments where somebody believed in me long before I believed in myself. Reflection brings those things into focus. It lets you see the lessons that were always there, but hidden behind the pace of life. It reminds you that no leader succeeds alone, and it shows you how many people helped carve the path that you're on right now. When leaders turn back and they acknowledge the writing on their own gates, gratitude begins to grow. Awareness grows, their sense of purpose grows, and they lead with a steadier, more grounded presence. In the next section, I want to shift from the gates of Kyoto to something completely different, a tiny 8-seat sushi bar in Akasaka where mastery, intention, and absolute craft taught me and Nellie a different type of leadership lesson. You know what? There are moments in life where you witness mastery so up close that it stays with you forever. One of those moments happened for Nellie and I in a tiny sushi bar in Akasaka in Tokyo. It's a place called Chef Miura. It seats only 8 people. The small size creates a sense of intimacy that you almost never find in modern dining. You walk in as strangers, you're shoulder to shoulder, and you're immediately realizing that nothing can hide in a room that small. There's no shortcuts, no distractions, no smoke and mirrors, just a chef, his tools, and years of dedication. From the absolute moment that Chef Miura began working, the room shifted. You could tell instantly that you were watching somebody who had spent an entire lifetime shaping his craft. There was zero rush in his movement, no wasted energy, no panic. Every step had an absolute purpose. Every cut of fish was selected with the utmost care. The way that he rinsed the blade after every cut, the way that he pressed and compacted the rice, the way that he dressed each piece with the slightest brush of soy sauce. None of it was dramatic, yet all of it carried incredible intention. And what struck me the most was how calm it all felt. When somebody is that good at what they do, it becomes almost meditative to watch. You feel the years behind each movement. You feel the pride, the weight of repetition, the refinement, and the relentless pursuit of better. It reminded me of something that I have believed for most of my adult life, that mastery is not about talent, it's not about being gifted, it's about being intentional. It's about caring enough to do the very small things well, even when nobody else is watching. It's about giving your work the respect it deserves, whether you're preparing a delicate piece of sushi or leading a team through the highest pressure moment. Watching Chef Miura work from just a few feet away, it brought clarity to an idea that leaders often forget. Excellence is not an event, it's a habit. It grows from reflection and repetition. You sharpen your craft the same way that he sharpens his knife, one deliberate stroke, one deliberate moment at a time. And this ties directly into something that I want to share with the leaders who watch this channel. If you're stepping into a new leadership role or you've been recently promoted, mastery does not come from just winging it. It comes from starting strong with the right habits, the right mindset, and the right approach from day one. That's why I created the first 30 days. It's built for leaders who want to establish credibility early, who want to earn respect quickly, and then avoid the costly mistakes that can follow you for months if you get the first few weeks wrong. It fits perfectly with what we're talking about today because reflection is the foundation of early growth, and intentional leadership is how you stand out in a world that has grown comfortable with average. Sitting in that tiny sushi bar, it reminded me that leaders become craftsmen when they choose to treat their work with care. And the earlier you start building those habits, the more powerful your leadership becomes. In the next section, I want to shift from mastery to something just as important: why reflection has become a strategic advantage for modern leaders and what it gives you that reactive leadership never will. When you look across the challenges that leaders face today, reflection has become more important than ever. We live in a world that moves faster than it ever has. Expectations rise, distractions multiply, the pace keeps accelerating. And without intentional reflection, leaders begin drifting without ever noticing the shift. Most leadership failures don't come from a lack of intelligence. There's a lot of smart people out there, but they do come from a lack of awareness. People rush from one priority to the next. They're solving problems as they appear. Sure, they're staying busy and they're convincing themselves that busyness somehow equals effectiveness. But when you never pause to understand what's actually happening beneath the surface, you end up reacting to symptoms instead of addressing root causes. Reflection protects you from that drift. It creates space for clarity. It allows you to slow down the moment so that you can see it for what it really is. You start to understand the patterns in your behavior. You recognize when your emotions are influencing your decisions. You notice when your team is giving cues that something's off. You become more intentional about how you decide to show up. Reflection is not a soft skill. It's an incredibly strategic advantage. Leaders who reflect consistently, they build stronger intuition. They make cleaner decisions. They see problems earlier. They recognize opportunities immediately. And they avoid that blind spots that sink so many promising careers. Reflection also deepens your sense of gratitude. When you look back on your path, you start to see the people who supported you along the way. You see the leaders who took a chance on you. You see the teammates who helped carry more weight than perhaps they had to. And you begin to understand your experiences shaped you in ways that you never realized when you were moving through them. That type of gratitude, it changes the way that you lead, and it keeps your ego in check. It strengthens your empathy. It helps you understand that leadership is less about authority and more about stewardship. And all of this becomes even more powerful when you combine reflection with intentional action. When you pause long enough to see clearly and then actually act deliberately on what you learned, your leadership becomes more stable and more influential than you ever imagined. It becomes harder for chaos to throw you off center. It becomes easier to make decisions with confidence instead of fear. Reflection gives you that quiet space to understand yourself. And leaders who understand themselves, they lead teams with far more strength, consistency, and trust. In the next section, I want to give you a practical way to build reflection into your weekly rhythm. It's a simple framework that helps you pull lessons from your experiences and then turn them into real growth. Reflection becomes far more powerful when you have a simple way to approach it. You don't need a long journaling routine or an hour of quiet meditation each morning, although that might be pretty nice. But what you do need is a consistent rhythm, a clear method, and a willingness to pause just long enough to understand the lessons right in front of you. One of the tools that I teach in my leadership program is something I call the GUIDE framework. It's a way to think through challenges, decisions, and experiences that help leaders stay grounded and absolutely intentional. GUIDE is an acronym, and it stands for Gather, Understand, Initiate, Deliver, and Evaluate. And while I normally use it for decision making, it works incredibly well for reflection as well. Start with gather. This is where you simply capture what happened: the meeting, the conflict, the win, the mistake, the moment that felt off. You don't need to just judge it yet. You just bring it forward into your mind. Then you're going to move to understand. That's where you begin to ask yourself the deeper questions. Why did I react the way that I did? What was the root cause? What was the real issue behind the surface problem? What emotions were driving that moment? This is where you begin to see the writing on your own gate. After that, you got to shift into initiate. And that's where you decide that what really needs to change. It's a habit that needs strengthening, a boundary that needs reinforcing, perhaps a conversation that needs to happen. Got a few of those. Maybe it's a behavior that you want to be more intentional about. Then comes the deliver. This is the action step. Leadership is not understanding alone. It's understanding paired with movement. It's taking what you learned and pushing into the real world. Finally, you got to evaluate. This is where that loop comes in full circle. After you apply the lesson, you have to come back to it to see how it went. What's improved? What still needs work? What you learned from trying. That's important. Reflection, it's not passive. It's an active process where you actually learn from your experiences and then shape your leadership with intention. If you want a few simple prompts to get you started, here are the ones that I use regularly. What did this week teach me? Where did I drift from the leader that I want to be? What habits deserve more attention next week? What conversations need to happen? Who supported me that I have not yet thanked? These questions reveal things that you rarely notice when you're rushing. They help you understand yourself and they help you adjust before a small issue becomes a major problem. Now, if you're somebody who values this type of intentional growth, I would encourage you to take the next step and join my newsletter and the upcoming Everyday Diplomat courses. Everything I teach is built around real-world tools. They're practical frameworks and the lessons that help leaders grow without any guesswork. If you want to build a leadership rhythm that is steady, intentional, and rooted in reflection, this is the community that you want to be a part of. Reflection is the beginning of clarity, and clarity is the beginning of confident leadership. And guess what? Confident leadership, it's what moves teams, organizations, and people forward. When I think back on this amazing trip that Nellie and I just took to Japan, and on the lessons that shaped this episode, one truth keeps on rising to the surface. You can't fully understand the meaning of a moment until you look back on it. Reflection brings clarity into things that perhaps felt ordinary at the moment. It reveals the people who shaped you, the moments that guided you, and the experiences that quietly prepared you for the leader that you're becoming right now. Walking that Senbon Torii, it reminded me that in a way that I'll never forget. It's absolutely beautiful. If you haven't been there, you gotta go. When you're moving forward, all you see is that next step, the next challenge, the next task. But that moment that you stop and you turn around, the writing appears. The lesson appears. The people who walked right beside you the whole journey, they appear. And you realize that you were never moving alone this entire time. Watching Chef Miura in that quiet 8-seat sushi bar, it taught me something incredibly similar, that mastery is not loud. Growth isn't dramatic, and it happens through intention, through repetition, and through the small choices that you choose to make every single day. Leadership isn't defined by the title on your door or the rank on your collar. It's defined by how you show up in those quiet moments when nobody else is watching. Reflection connects all of those pieces. It anchors you. It reminds you of who you are, who you want to become, and what matters most along the way. It keeps you from drifting through life on autopilot, and it brings gratitude back into the center of your work. I'll tell you what, it helps you lead with a steadier, more grounded presence. And if there's one thing that I hope you take from this episode, it's this. Make space to look back. The truth that you're searching for, the clarity you want, and the direction you need are often hiding in the moments that you never paused long enough to examine. Leaders don't grow by accident. They grow by choosing to reflect, choosing to learn, and then choosing to carry those lessons forward with absolute clarity and intention. Next week, we're going to take a look back at the most powerful leadership lessons of 2025, the wins, the mistakes, the breakthroughs, and the insights that shaped leaders this year. It's one of the most important conversations I think that we're going to have, and you're not going to want to miss it. But until then, keep leading with integrity, stay grounded in gratitude, and remember that every business, every mission, and every team is a people business. I'm Michael Forrest, and this is the Everyday Diplomat.